Police officer catches 5-year-old little girl buying diapers. One detail makes him call 911 in tears. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Officer James Wilson sighed as he walked the aisles of Save Mart, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. After 15 years on the force, routine patrol duty in this small Alabama town felt like sleepwalking. He nodded politely at the elderly cashier and continued his sweep, checking his watch. Only 2 more hours until his shift ended. That's when he saw them. A small girl, perhaps. 5 years old, struggling to walk down aisle 7. Her tiny hand clutched the weathered fingers of an elderly man in a threadbare coat. What caught Wilson's attention wasn't just their shabby appearance. It was the girl's distended belly, unnaturally swollen beneath her faded pink sweater. Something wasn't right, Wilson observed as the child reached for a package of diapers, standing on tiptoes to slide them into their nearly empty cart. Her movements were careful, deliberate, as though she carried something precious. Tears glistened in her eyes. "Does it still hurt, Grandpa?" Her small voice carried across the aisle. "The baby's moving again." Wilson froze, his police instincts suddenly on high alert. The words seemed impossible coming from someone so young. The old man didn't answer. Instead, his eyes darted nervously around the store before landing on Wilson's uniform. Recognition, then fear flashed across his face. He tugged the girl's hand urgently. "We have to go now," he whispered hoarsely. "Leave it." "But the baby needs—" the girl protested. "Now," the man insisted, pulling her toward the exit. Wilson approached them, keeping his voice gentle. "Excuse me. Folks, is everything all right over here?" The old man's face crumpled with panic. Without warning, he released the child's hand and bolted toward the exit, moving with surprising speed for someone his age. "Sir, wait!" Wilson called, but the man disappeared through the automatic doors. The little girl stood frozen, still clutching the package of diapers. Her lower lip trembled as tears spilled down her cheeks. Wilson knelt to her level, careful to maintain some distance. "Hi there. I'm Officer Wilson. What's your name, sweetheart?" She hugged the diapers to her chest, her knuckles white. "Emily," she whispered. "Emily, do you know where your grandpa went?" She shook her head, more tears falling. Wilson noticed how thin her arms were, contrasting sharply with her swollen abdomen. "Are you feeling okay?" he asked gently. "Does anything hurt?" Emily looked down at her belly, her small hand resting protectively over it. "My baby moves and it hurts sometimes," she whispered. "I just wanted diapers for when it comes." Wilson felt his heart stop. In 15 years of police work, nothing had prepared him for this moment. How could a child so young possibly be in this condition? Who was the elderly man? And why had he fled? "Emily," he said, keeping his voice steady despite his racing thoughts, "I think we should see a doctor to make sure you and your baby are okay." She looked up at him, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope that broke his heart. "Will they have more diapers there?" Wilson nodded, offering his hand. "They'll have everything you need." As Emily slipped her tiny hand into his, Wilson radioed dispatch with a message that would set in motion events nobody could have anticipated. "I need medical assistance at Save Mart immediately, and you won't believe what I'm dealing with. What the doctors would discover would change everything." Officer Wilson guided Emily through the sliding doors of Save Mart, her tiny hand gripping his tightly. The package of diapers remained clutched against her chest like a shield. In the parking lot, curious onlookers had already gathered, drawn by the flashing lights of the patrol car and approaching ambulance. "Is that your police car?" Emily asked, her eyes widening at the vehicle. "It sure is," Wilson replied, trying to keep things light despite the heaviness in his chest. "Have you ever seen one up close before?" Emily shook her head, then suddenly doubled over, wincing. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Wilson knelt beside her, genuine concern etched on his face. "The baby's kicking real hard," she whispered, rubbing her distended belly. "Grandpa says that means it's strong." Wilson swallowed hard. Every instinct told him something was terribly wrong with this situation, but he maintained a reassuring smile. "The paramedics are going to help you feel better, okay?" The ambulance pulled up, and two paramedics emerged, Sarah Chen and Marcus Johnson. Wilson had worked with them many times before, but their professional composure momentarily faltered when they saw Emily. "This is Emily," Wilson explained, keeping his voice steady. "She needs medical attention right away." Sarah approached slowly, crouching to Emily's level. "Hi there, Emily. I'm Sarah. My friend Marcus and I are going to take you to the hospital to make sure you're feeling okay. Would that be all right?" Emily looked uncertainly at Wilson. "Will you come too?" "Of course," he assured her, though it was against protocol. Some rules were meant to be broken. Inside the ambulance, Sarah gently examined Emily while Marcus drove. Wilson sat nearby, filling out his initial report, though his eyes kept drifting to the child. She answered Sarah's medical questions with surprising clarity for someone so young. "When did your tummy start hurting, Emily?" Sarah asked. "After I saw the lady at the shelter with her baby." "Inside. I wanted one too, so I got one," Emily replied matter-of-factly. "It started growing after that." Sarah and Wilson exchanged concerned glances. "And where does your grandpa take you during the day?" Wilson asked casually. Emily's face clouded. "Different places. We move a lot. Grandpa says, we have to stay hidden from the people who take children away." She leaned closer to Wilson and whispered, "Are you going to take me away?" The innocence of her question nearly broke him. "No, Emily. I just want to help you and your grandpa." "Then why did he run away?" Her lower lip trembled. "Sometimes grown-ups get scared," Wilson explained. "Even grandpas." At Mercy General Hospital, Dr. Rebecca Chen met them at the emergency entrance. She quickly assessed the situation and led them to a private examination room, away from the curious stares in the waiting area. "I need to examine you, Emily," Dr. Chen explained gently. "Is that okay?" Emily nodded but refused to release the diapers or let Wilson leave. "He keeps me safe," she insisted. As Dr. Chen conducted her preliminary examination, Wilson stepped into the hallway to call his supervisor, Captain Reynolds. "I'm staying with her," Wilson stated firmly, anticipating resistance. "That's not protocol, Wilson," Reynolds replied. "Child Services should be handling this." "Child Services is backed up for hours. This girl is terrified and possibly in danger. I'm not leaving her alone in the system." His voice left no room for argument. A heavy sigh came through the phone. "Fine, but this is on you. What about the man who ran?" "I've got his description out to all units. Elderly, thin, wearing a navy coat and brown cap. Appears homeless. I'm hoping we find him before nightfall." When Wilson returned to the room, Dr. Chen motioned him outside while a nurse stayed with Emily. "I've ordered comprehensive tests," she whispered, concern evident in her voice. "Her condition is unusual. There's definitely abdominal distension, but it's not consistent with what her symptoms suggest. Some of her vital signs indicate malnutrition and possible infection. But there's something else going on here. Something psychological, perhaps." Wilson nodded grimly. "Any signs of—" He lowered his voice further, not wanting to say words that might frighten Emily if overheard. "We'll know more after the tests," Dr. Chen interrupted. "For now, she's safe, and that's what matters." Wilson's phone buzzed with an incoming message. It was from Detective Martinez. "Security footage from bus station. Found your runner. Sending image now." The photo loaded on his screen, the same elderly man from the store, counting coins. At a ticket counter, his hands trembling. "We need to find him," Wilson muttered. "He has answers we need." Inside the examination room, Emily had fallen asleep clutching the diapers, exhaustion finally overwhelming her. Looking at her innocent face, Wilson made a silent promise. He would uncover the truth, no matter where it led. His radio crackled to life. "Officer Wilson," dispatch called. "We have a lead on your suspect. Ticket agent says he purchased a bus ticket to Millbrook. Last bus left 20 minutes ago." Wilson checked his watch. If he hurried, He might catch that bus at its first stop. But could he really leave Emily now when she trusted him to stay? Officer Wilson paced outside Emily's hospital room, torn between two urgent duties. The bus to Millbrook would reach its first stop in 30 minutes, enough time for him to intercept the elderly man if he left. Immediately. But inside that room lay a frightened little girl who had latched onto him as her only source of safety in a confusing world. "I can stay with her," offered Nurse Maria Rodriguez, sensing his dilemma. "I have 3 daughters of my own. She'll be comfortable with me." Wilson nodded. "Gratefully. I won't be long. If she wakes up, I'll tell her you're coming back," Maria assured him. "Go do what you need to do." With a last glance at Emily's sleeping form, Wilson hurried to his patrol car. The evening air had turned chilly, and he wondered if the old man had a warm place to spend the night. Despite everything, Wilson couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a simple case of wrongdoing. The fear in the man's eyes hadn't seemed criminal. It had looked like desperation. The bus stop in Greenwood, just 15 miles outside town, was little more than a gas station with a bench out front. Wilson arrived just as the bus pulled in, its air brakes hissing in the quiet night. He positioned himself where he could observe every passenger disembarking. One by one, travelers stepped down. A young couple, an elderly woman, a businessman. No sign of Emily's grandpa. When the last passenger exited, Wilson approached the driver. Older gentleman, navy coat, brown cap, would have boarded in Oak Ridge about an hour ago, Wilson inquired, showing his badge. The driver scratched his chin. "Yeah, I remember him. Nervous type, counting pennies for his fare. But he never got on. Bought a ticket, waited till boarding, then disappeared. Left the ticket on the bench." A decoy, Wilson realized. The man had never intended to board that bus. Back in his car, Wilson slammed his palm against the steering wheel in frustration. His phone rang. Dr. Chen. "Emily's awake and asking for you," she said without preamble. "And we have preliminary test results." "I'm on my way," Wilson replied, already turning the car around. When he arrived at the hospital, he found Emily sitting up in bed, drawing on a notepad Maria had given her. Her face brightened when she saw him. "Officer Wilson, I thought you left like Grandpa did. I told you I'd come back, didn't I?" He smiled, taking a seat beside her bed. "What are you drawing there?" Emily held up the paper proudly. "It's my family. See? This is me, this is Grandpa, and this is my baby inside me." Wilson studied the childish drawing, a small stick figure with a circle in the middle of its torso, beside a taller figure with a smiling face. It was both innocent and heartbreaking. "That's beautiful, Emily. Can I keep it?" She nodded, carefully tearing out the page for him. "Are you going to find Grandpa?" "I'm trying," Wilson admitted. "Would you like that?" "Yes, he gets scared sometimes, but he takes care of me. He reads me stories and never yells, even when I spill things." Dr. Chen appeared in the doorway, gesturing for Wilson to join her outside. "The blood tests show significant malnutrition and a minor intestinal infection, which explains some of her discomfort," Dr. Chen explained quietly. "But physically, she's not." She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "There's no pregnancy, despite what she believes. The swelling is partly from the infection and partly from irregular eating patterns. Then why is she convinced she's having a baby? Children her age can develop extremely vivid imaginary scenarios, especially in response to trauma or instability. Our psychologist, Dr. Michaels, has a theory. Emily mentioned a shelter and a pregnant woman. She might have witnessed a real pregnancy, internalized it, and in her isolation developed this as a coping mechanism. Wilson processed this information, relief washing over him. So she's not in immediate danger? Not medically, no. But her psychological state is fragile, and we still don't know who this man is or their living situation. Wilson's phone buzzed with an incoming message. A photo from Martinez of a discarded sketchbook found near the bus station, open to a page filled with similar childlike drawings, all featuring the same 3 figures Emily had drawn. "I need to find him," Wilson said, determination in his voice. "And I think I know where to start looking." As he headed toward his car, Wilson heard his name called. Dr. Chen was hurrying after him. "Emily said something you should know," she panted. "She mentioned living in the blue house with the broken steps, where the train sounds are loud. At night. Does that mean anything to you?" Wilson's mind immediately mapped the town. The old Porter district near the railway. There's only one blue house left standing there. As he drove toward the abandoned neighborhood, Wilson realized how deeply this case had pulled him in. He'd gone far. Beyond his badge now. This wasn't just police work anymore. Something about Emily's trust in him, her innocent faith that he would make things right, had awakened a protective instinct he didn't know he possessed. The blue house came into view as he turned the corner, its paint peeling, one step. Indeed broken, exactly as Emily had described. The blue house stood silent in the gathering darkness, its weathered exterior illuminated by Officer Wilson's flashlight. A train rumbled in the distance, confirming Emily's description. The broken step creaked under his weight as he approached the front. Door which hung slightly ajar. "Hello, anyone here?" Wilson called, one hand resting cautiously on his holster. "This is Officer Wilson with the Oak Ridge Police Department." Silence answered him. He pushed the door open wider, revealing a sparse but surprisingly tidy interior. Unlike most abandoned homes, this one showed signs of recent habitation. A neatly folded blanket on a threadbare couch, a small table with 2 mismatched chairs, a shelf stacked with library books. Wilson moved carefully through the living room, noting how clean the floors were despite the building's dilapidated state. The kitchen counter sat a child's plastic cup and a small bowl, both washed and set out to dry. A calendar hung on the wall, days marked with simple symbols, stars, circles, squares, some system of organization known only to its creators. "This doesn't make sense," Wilson muttered to himself, comparing the scene to his expectations. The home of a person who would harm a child shouldn't feel this cared for. A noise outside sent him hurrying to the window. A middle-aged woman stood in the adjacent yard, watching the house with curious eyes. "Evening, ma'am," Wilson greeted her, stepping onto the porch. "Do you live nearby?" "Just there," she nodded toward a small yellow house across the street. "I'm Meredith Townsend. Are you looking for Harold?" "Harold?" Wilson's pulse quickened. "Is that the man who lives here? Elderly gentleman, wears a navy coat?" Meredith nodded. "Harold Jenkins. Been living here with his granddaughter for about 8 months now. Is everything okay?" "I haven't seen them since yesterday." "His granddaughter?" Wilson repeated, pieces starting to fall into place. "A little girl, about 5 years old. That's Emily, sweet child, though she doesn't talk much to strangers. Harold's been raising her on his own since—" She hesitated. "Well, I don't know the whole story, but I gather there was a tragedy. He's a good man, officer. Always makes sure she's clean and fed, even when I suspect he goes without himself." Wilson processed this information, his perspective shifting dramatically. "How do they live? This house doesn't appear to have electricity." "It doesn't," Meredith confirmed. "Harold collects rainwater in barrels out back, uses the public library for warmth during the day, and their bathrooms to wash up. The man does everything he can. For that little girl." She paused, concern crossing her face. "Has something happened to them?" "I'm just trying to locate Harold," Wilson answered carefully. "Emily is safe, but I need to speak with him urgently." "Well, if you find him, please tell him Ms. Meredith has been saving some soup. That man's too proud to accept help directly, but he'll take it for Emily's sake." She glanced back at the house. "It's not much of a home, but you should see how hard he tries to make it one for her." Thanking Meredith, Wilson continued his exploration of the house. In the small back bedroom, he found Emily's space, a mattress on the floor with clean sheets and a handmade quilt. Beside it sat a crate serving as a nightstand, holding a collection of treasures, smooth stones, colorful buttons, a slightly tattered teddy bear. On the wall hung dozens of drawings, all featuring the same three figures: Emily, the old man, and the baby. But it was the adjacent wall that stopped Wilson in his tracks. Harold had created an educational space for Emily. Letters of the alphabet carefully drawn on paper plates, numbers with corresponding quantities of items glued beneath them, even simple words with matching pictures. A homemade education for a child who clearly wasn't attending school. On Harold's side of the room, just a thin blanket spread on the floor, Wilson discovered a plastic container holding important papers. Inside was Emily's birth certificate, confirming Harold Jenkins as her biological grandfather. Another document, worn from frequent handling, was a death certificate for Sarah Jenkins, Emily's mother, Harold's daughter, who had passed away 2 years earlier. Wilson sat heavily on the edge of the mattress, the pieces forming a picture very different from what he'd initially imagined. This wasn't a story of malice, but of desperate poverty. A grandfather doing everything possible to keep his granddaughter with him after tragedy struck. His phone rang, startling him in the quiet house. It was Dr. Chen. "You need to get back to the hospital," she said urgently. "Emily's having a panic attack. She's convinced her baby is in danger, and she's asking for both you and her grandfather. And Officer Wilson. We found something unusual in her latest test results." "I'm on my way," Wilson replied, gathering the documents to take with him. As he headed for the door, he noticed something he'd missed before. A small jar on the kitchen counter labeled Emily's Future in shaky handwriting, containing a meager collection of coins and small bills. The truth was becoming clearer, and it was breaking Wilson's heart. Officer Wilson rushed into Emily's hospital room to find Dr. Chen and a nurse trying to calm the distraught child. Emily's face was streaked with tears, her small hands protectively covering her swollen abdomen. "My baby's scared," she sobbed. "He needs Grandpa. Please find him." Wilson moved quickly to her bedside. "Emily, I'm here. Remember." "Me?" "Officer Wilson." The moment she saw him, Emily reached out desperately. "You promised to help. My baby won't stop crying inside." Wilson gently took her hand. "I went to the blue house, Emily, the one with the broken step." Her eyes widened. "You found our home? Is Grandpa there?" "Not right now, but I'm still looking for him," Wilson assured her. "Ms. Meredith from across the street says she's saving soup for you both." Emily's breathing slowed slightly at the familiar name. "Ms. Meredith gives me cat stickers sometimes." A fresh wave of anxiety washed over her face. "But my baby." "Doctor." Chen stepped forward. "Emily, would it help to see your baby? We have a special machine that can look inside." Emily looked confused but nodded. "I'll arrange for an ultrasound," Dr. Chen told Wilson quietly. "It might help her to actually see what's happening inside her body, even if it's not what she believes." While they waited, Wilson showed Emily the birth certificate he'd found. "This says your grandpa's name is Harold Jenkins. Is that right?" Emily traced her grandfather's name with her finger. "That's Grandpa. He says I'm a Jenkins too, just like my mommy was." "Do you remember your mommy, Emily?" A shadow crossed her face. "She's in heaven. Grandpa says she's a star now, watching over us." She leaned closer to Wilson. "Sometimes I talk to her at night and tell her about the baby. Grandpa says she'd be happy I'm not alone anymore." Dr. Chen returned with the ultrasound technician and a portable machine. "Emily, this special camera will show us your baby. Is that okay?" Emily nodded eagerly, watching with fascination as they prepared the equipment. When the cold gel touched her belly, she giggled for the first time since Wilson had met her. "That tickles." "Duh." Technician moved the wand gently across Emily's abdomen, the screen positioned where they could all see it. Emily stared at the gray and white images with complete concentration. "See this area here?" Dr. Chen pointed to the screen. "This is inside your tummy. It's a little swollen because you have an infection that's making you uncomfortable." Emily frowned at the screen. "But where's my baby?" Dr. Chen exchanged a glance with Wilson before continuing gently. Sometimes when we feel very alone or scared, our minds can create special friends to keep us company. Your body is just a little sick, Emily, but we can help you feel better. But I feel it moving, Emily insisted, her voice smaller now. Grandpa believes me. Wilson's phone vibrated with an incoming call from Detective Martinez. We found him, Martinez said without preamble. Harold Jenkins just turned himself in at the station. Says he wants to see his granddaughter. Wilson, he's not what we expected. This man is terrified, not guilty. Keep him there. I'm coming now, Wilson replied, relief flooding through him. Turning to Emily, who was still staring at the ultrasound screen with confusion and disappointment, Wilson made a promise. Emily, I have wonderful news. We found your grandpa, and I'm going to bring him to you. For the first time, a genuine smile spread across Emily's face, lighting up her eyes. Really? He's coming back? Yes, Wilson assured her. Family belongs together. Officer Wilson found Harold Jenkins sitting in the station's interview room, his weathered hands clasped tightly on the table. The elderly man looked even thinner under the harsh fluorescent lights, his navy coat hanging loosely from bony shoulders. His eyes, however, held a quiet dignity despite his obvious fear. Mr. Jenkins, Wilson began, taking the seat across from him. I'm Officer James Wilson. I've been with your granddaughter, Emily. Harold's eyes immediately filled with tears. Is she all right? Please, I need to know she's okay. She's receiving good medical care, Wilson assured him. She has an infection that's causing her discomfort and some nutritional issues, but the doctors are helping her. Harold nodded, relief visible on his face. And the baby she talks about? Wilson chose his words carefully. The doctors believe Emily is experiencing what they call a psychological pregnancy. Her mind has created this baby as a companion. Dr. Chen thinks Emily may have seen a pregnant woman at a shelter and internalized the experience. At the women's shelter on Maple Street, Harold confirmed softly. We stayed there for 3 nights last winter during the freeze. There was a young woman, 8 months along. She showed Emily her ultrasound pictures, let Emily feel the baby kicking. His voice broke. A week after we left, Emily started saying she had a baby growing too. I thought it was just pretend at first. But then, her belly actually began to swell, Wilson finished. I didn't know what to do, Harold admitted, his hands trembling. No insurance, no money for doctors. Then she started having pains. I was saving up for a clinic visit, collecting cans, doing odd jobs when I could find them. He gestured to his worn clothes. Not many people want to hire someone who looks like me. Why did you run at the supermarket? Wilson asked, though he was beginning to understand. Harold's eyes dropped to the table. I've had the police called on me before, just for being with Emily. A homeless old man with a little girl. People assume the worst. And I was afraid they'd take her away. He looked up, determination replacing fear. She's all I have left, officer. After my Sarah died, that's Emily's mother, I promised I'd keep her daughter safe. I've failed at a lot of things in my life, but I won't fail at that. Wilson nodded, thinking of the makeshift classroom in the blue house, the clean clothes despite no running water, the jar of saved coins. You haven't failed, Mr. Jenkins. You've done everything possible in an impossible situation. Will they take her from me now? Harold asked, the question he clearly dreaded most. Before Wilson could answer, Captain Reynolds opened the door. Wilson, a word? In the hallway, Reynolds was direct. The media got wind of this case. They're running with child with mysterious pregnancy found with homeless man. It's becoming a circus out there. Wilson felt his stomach sink. That's not what's happening here, Captain. This man is her biological grandfather. He's been doing everything he can to take care of her after her mother died. That may be, but social services is already involved. They're pushing for emergency removal and placement in foster care while they investigate. That would devastate her, Wilson argued. She's already traumatized, and being separated from the only person she trusts would make everything worse. "It's not up to you, Wilson," Reynolds said firmly. "You're too personally involved in this case." Wilson thought quickly. "Give me 24 hours. Let me bring Mr. Jenkins to the hospital to see Emily. Let the doctors evaluate their relationship. If we rush this, we could cause more harm than good." Reynolds considered this, then reluctantly nodded. 24 hours, Wilson. That's it." Back in the interview room, Wilson offered Harold what he needed most: hope. "Mr. Jenkins, I'd like to take you to see Emily now. There's a lot we need to figure out, but I believe families belong together when possible. Will you work with me on this?" For the first time, Harold's face relaxed into a tentative smile. "I'd do anything for my granddaughter, officer. Anything at all." As they drove to the hospital, Harold gazed out the window at the passing city. "I used to be a construction foreman, you know. Had a nice house in Millbrook. After Sarah got sick, the medical bills took everything. By the time Emily came to live with me, there wasn't much left." Wilson glanced at the proud old man beside him. "Emily showed me your teaching wall. The alphabet, the numbers. You've been homeschooling her." Harold nodded. "She's smart as a whip. Reads at second grade level already. I was afraid they'd take her if I tried to enroll her." School with no fixed address. As they pulled into the hospital parking lot, Wilson made a silent promise to himself. Somehow, he would find a way to keep this family together. The moment Harold stepped into Emily's hospital room, the transformation was immediate. Emily's entire face lit up, her arms stretching toward him with desperate longing. "Grandpa, you came back," she cried, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. Harold rushed to her bedside, gathering her small form into a gentle embrace. "Of course I came back, my sweet girl. Grandpa just got a little scared, that's all." Wilson stood quietly by the door, watching their reunion. Dr. Chen observed from the corner, making notes on her clipboard, her clinical assessment softened by the obvious affection between grandfather and granddaughter. "The baby was so worried," Emily whispered into Harold's shoulder. "He kept moving and moving." Rather than contradicting her, Harold simply stroked her hair. "Well, I'm here now, and everything's going to be all right." Dr. Chen approached them with a warm smile. "Emily, how are you feeling now that your grandfather is here?" "Better," Emily answered, not letting go of Harold's hand. "My tummy doesn't hurt so much anymore." "That's wonderful news," Dr. Chen said. "The medicine is helping with your infection. Mr. Jenkins, could I speak with you and Officer Wilson for a moment outside?" In the hallway, Dr. Chen was direct but compassionate. "Mr. Jenkins, Emily's condition is improving physically. The swelling in her abdomen has already decreased slightly since starting antibiotics. However, her psychological state is more complex." "The baby isn't real, is it?" Harold asked quietly. "No," Dr. Chen confirmed. "But to Emily, the experience is very real. Our child." Psychologist Dr. Michaels believes Emily has developed what we call a fantasy pregnancy as a coping mechanism for loss and loneliness. Harold's eyes welled with tears. "After my daughter died, Emily stopped talking altogether for nearly 6 months. When she started believing she had this baby, sighed her. It was the first time she seemed happy again. I didn't have the heart to tell her it wasn't real." Wilson noticed a social worker approaching, Keisha Williams from Child Protective Services, her expression serious as she studied the file in her hands. "Officer Wilson, Mr. Jenkins," she greeted them professionally. "I've been assigned to Emily's case. I'd like to discuss next steps." Wilson felt Harold tense beside him. "Ms. Williams, I hope you've had a chance to review the documentation I provided confirming Mr. Jenkins is Emily's legal guardian." "I have," she acknowledged, "but there are serious concerns about Emily's living conditions and access to education and health care." "With all due respect," Wilson countered, "Mr. Jenkins has done everything possible with extremely limited resources. He's created educational materials, kept Emily clean and as well fed as his circumstances allowed, and maintained their relationship through impossible challenges." Keisha's professional demeanor softened slightly. "I understand that, officer, but my responsibility is Emily's well-being. Living in an abandoned house without utilities doesn't meet basic standards for child safety. Harold spoke up, his voice steady despite his obvious fear. I know our situation isn't ideal. I've applied for assistance programs, but without an address, most applications were rejected. I've been saving every penny for a security deposit on an apartment. He straightened his shoulders. I was a respected foreman for 30 years. I'm not looking for handouts, just a chance to provide for my granddaughter properly. Before Keisha could respond, they heard a commotion from Emily's room. Rushing back inside, they found Emily curled into a tight ball, clutching her stomach. The babies. Scared again, she sobbed. He knows they want to take me away from Grandpa. Dr. Chen quickly checked Emily's vital signs. Her blood pressure is elevated. This level of distress isn't good for her recovery. Keisha observed the scene thoughtfully, then made a surprising suggestion. Mr. Jenkins, would you consider staying here with Emily tonight? The hospital can provide a cot. Hope flickered across Harold's face. You mean I don't have to leave her? Not tonight, Keisha said carefully. We still have decisions to make about long-term arrangements, but Emily's immediate medical needs take priority. That evening, Wilson brought dinner for Harold and a teddy bear for Emily from the gift shop. He found them together on Emily's bed, Harold reading to her from a tattered library book about a family of rabbits finding a new home. Officer Wilson, Emily called excitedly. Grandpa's teaching me a new word. Persevere. It means to keep trying even when things are hard. Wilson smiled, struck by how perfectly that word described the man beside her. That's an excellent word, Emily. As he prepared to leave for the night, Harold followed him into the hallway. Thank you, the old man said simply, for believing in us when nobody else did. This isn't over, Wilson cautioned. There are still hurdles ahead. Harold nodded, determination evident in his weathered face. But for the first time in a very long time, I have hope. That's no small gift, Officer Wilson. Wilson watched as Harold returned to Emily's side, the two of them resuming their story about the rabbit family searching for home. In that moment, Wilson resolved that somehow he would help them find theirs. The next morning, Officer Wilson arrived at the hospital to find a small crowd of reporters gathered at the entrance. A local news van was parked nearby, its satellite dish extended skyward. His stomach tightened. The story had leaked. Officer, is it true you found a 5-year-old pregnant girl living with a homeless man? Called one reporter as Wilson pushed through the crowd. No. Comment, he replied firmly, hurrying inside where hospital security was already working to keep the media at bay. In Emily's room, he found Harold watching the morning news with dismay. The headline scrolling across the bottom of the screen read, Child with mysterious condition discovered in abandoned home. I turned it off before Emily woke up, Harold whispered, glancing at his granddaughter who was still sleeping peacefully. They're making it sound like I hurt her. Wilson's phone buzzed with a message from Captain Reynolds. Media circus escalating. Commissioner wants briefing. SAP, Social Services expediting case review. Things are going to move quickly today, Wilson warned Harold. We need to be prepared. Dr. Chen entered with Dr. Michaels, the child psychologist, a kind-faced woman with silver-streaked hair. Good morning, she greeted them quietly. I'd like to observe Emily when she wakes up, particularly her interaction with her grandfather. Emily stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She immediately reached for Harold's hand, a gesture that spoke volumes about their bond. Good morning, sunshine. Harold smiled at her. How's my girl feeling today? Better, Emily replied, sitting up. She noticed her abdomen appeared slightly less swollen and frowned. Where's my baby going? Dr. Michaels approached gently. Hello, Emily. I'm Dr. Michaels. May I talk with you a bit about your baby? Emily regarded her cautiously but nodded. Sometimes when people feel very lonely or sad, Dr. Michaels explained, our bodies can do interesting things. Your tummy got swollen partly because you were sick, and partly because your mind wanted so badly to have someone always with you. Emily's brow furrowed. But I feel it moving. It's real. The feelings are absolutely real, Dr. Michaels assured her. Your body was responding to what your mind believed. That's actually quite remarkable. Harold took Emily's hand. Remember when you had that invisible friend, Mr. Whiskers, after Mommy went to heaven? How he felt so real you could almost see him. Emily nodded slowly. This is a bit like that, Harold continued gently. Your mind created something special to help you not feel so alone. Emily's eyes filled with tears. So, there's no baby? Dr. Michaels leaned forward. The baby was real to you, Emily. It helped you when you needed it most. That's nothing to be ashamed of. Before Emily could respond, Keisha Williams entered with another woman in a formal suit, Barbara Hendricks, the Director of Child Protective Services. Officer Wilson, Mr. Jenkins, Keisha began, her professional tone masking her discomfort. Given the media, tension and the complexity of this case, my supervisor has taken a personal interest. Director Hendricks cut straight to the point. We've reviewed the situation and believe emergency foster placement is appropriate until we can fully assess Mr. Jenkins' capacity to provide adequate care. Emily, understanding immediately, clutched Harold's arm. No, I want to stay with Grandpa. Harold's face drained of color. Please, she's just starting to improve. Separating us now would traumatize her all over again. Wilson stepped forward. Director Hendricks, I must object. The bond between Emily and her grandfather is essential to her recovery. Dr. Chen and Dr. Michaels can confirm this. Dr. Chen nodded. Emily's physical symptoms show marked improvement when her grandfather is present. Separation anxiety could reverse that progress. Director Hendricks remained unmoved. While I appreciate the medical perspective, my concern is for the child's overall welfare. Living in an abandoned house without utilities is unacceptable. What if there was an alternative? Wilson suggested, an idea forming rapidly. A transitional housing situation where they could stay together under supervision? Such as? Director Hendricks raised an eyebrow. The community center on Oak Street has temporary family units. Mr. Jenkins could enroll in their employment assistance program while Emily receives proper medical follow-up. Wilson turned to Harold. Would you be willing to participate in such a program? In a heartbeat, Harold replied without hesitation. Director Hendricks considered this. It's not standard procedure. Nothing about this case is standard, Wilson pointed out. This is a chance to help a family heal together rather than adding another trauma. The tension in the room was palpable as Director Hendricks deliberated. Emily held her grandfather's hand so tightly her knuckles were white. I'll need assurances of supervision and regular check-ins, she finally said, and Mr. Jenkins must comply with all program requirements. Relief washed over Harold's face. I'll do whatever it takes. Emily looked up at Wilson with a mixture of confusion and hope. Does this mean we can stay together? Wilson nodded, offering her a reassuring smile. That's exactly what it means. As the others discussed logistics, Wilson stepped into the hallway to call Captain Reynolds with an update. Through the window, he could see Emily nestled against her grandfather's side, both of them looking more peaceful than he'd seen since this began. The path forward wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, it was visible. 3 days later, Emily was cleared for discharge from the U hospital. Her infection had responded well to antibiotics, and the swelling in her abdomen had decreased significantly. Though she still occasionally mentioned her baby, Dr. Michaels had begun helping her understand her experience in age-appropriate terms. Sometimes our wishes can feel so real that our bodies believe them too, the psychologist had explained, giving Emily a special journal to draw her feelings. The morning of discharge, Wilson arrived to find Harold helping Emily pack her few belongings, the teddy bear Wilson had given her, drawings she'd made during her stay, and a colorful knit hat donated by one of the nurses. Are you ready for your new adventure? Wilson asked Emily, who was sitting on the edge of the bed in donated clothes that fit her properly for the first time in months. Emily nodded cautiously. Is it a nice place? Will I have my own bed? It's a very nice place, Wilson assured her. And yes, you'll have your own bed with a real mattress and fresh sheets. Harold zipped up the small duffel bag of donated clothes. His own appearance had improved after a proper shower, a haircut from a volunteer barber, and clean clothes from the hospitals. Community closet. He looked 10 years younger, though anxiety still lined his face. "What if I can't find work?" he whispered to Wilson when Emily was distracted by Dr. Chen's farewell visit. "I'm not exactly what most employers are looking for. The program has partnerships with several businesses that understand situations like yours," Wilson explained. "And I've spoken with my brother-in-law who runs a building maintenance company. He's willing to give you a chance, given your background in construction." Gratitude flooded Harold's eyes. "I won't let you down." As they prepared to leave, a commotion in the hallway caught their attention. A news crew had somehow slipped past hospital security and was attempting to film Emily's departure. "Is that the miracle pregnancy child?" called a reporter, camera pointed directly at Emily, who shrank back in fear. Wilson quickly stepped in front of her, shielding her from view. "Please leave immediately. This is a minor who deserves privacy and respect." Security arrived to escort the news crew out, but the damage was done. Emily clung to Harold, trembling. "Why are those people interested in me, Grandpa? Am I in trouble?" Harold knelt to her level. "No, sweetheart. Some people just don't understand what you've been through, but we don't need to worry about them." Wilson arranged for them to exit through a service entrance, away from the small crowd of reporters that had gathered. As they walked toward his patrol car, Emily looked up at the bright blue sky, the first time she'd been outside in nearly a week. "It's so pretty," she breathed. "Can we go to the park at our new house?" "There's a playground right on the property," Wilson told her, helping her into the back seat. "And a community garden where you and your grandpa can grow vegetables if you'd like." The drive to Oak Street Community Center was short, but for Emily and Harold, it represented an enormous journey, from desperate survival to the first glimpses of stability. The community center director, Sophia Martinez, greeted them at the entrance. "Welcome to your temporary home," she said warmly. "We're so glad you're here." Their unit was small but clean and bright. A bedroom with 2 beds, a living area with a couch and table, and a kitchenette. Through the window, they could see the playground Emily had been promised. As Emily explored the space with growing excitement, Harold stood in the center of the room, overwhelmed. "I never thought we'd have a chance like this," he said quietly to Wilson. "How can I ever thank you?" Wilson smiled. "By proving everyone wrong about what you and Emily can accomplish together." Before leaving, Wilson handed Harold a business card. "My personal number is on the back. Day or night, if you need anything, call me." As Wilson headed back to his car, he glanced up at the unit's window to see Emily waving enthusiastically. She was holding her teddy bear in one arm and pointing to something inside with the other, her face animated as she showed Harold their new home. For the first time since this case began, Wilson felt the knot of worry in his chest begin to loosen. They had a long road ahead, but the first steps had been taken. 2 weeks after Emily and Harold moved into the community center, Wilson stopped by for one of his regular visits. He'd made it a habit to check on them every few days, bringing small gifts, a children's book, a potted plant for their windowsill, colored pencils for Emily's drawings. Today, however, he arrived to find their unit empty. Concerned, he sought out Sophia Martinez in the main office. "They're at the hospital," she explained, her expression worried. "Emily spiked a high fever last night. Harold called the emergency number and an ambulance took them in around midnight." Wilson's heart sank. "Which hospital?" "Mercy General again. Harold tried calling. But I was on night patrol with my phone off," Wilson realized, already heading for the door. "Thank you, Sophia." At the hospital, Wilson found Harold in the pediatric waiting room, his face drawn with exhaustion and fear. "What happened?" Wilson asked, sitting beside the elderly man who seemed to have aged years overnight. "She was doing so well," Harold said, his voice breaking. "The therapist visits were helping. She was eating better, talking about school in the fall. Then last night she woke up screaming about the baby, said it was trying to come out. Her fever was over 103. Before Wilson could respond, Dr. Chen appeared, her expression serious. The infection has returned. More aggressively this time, she explained. We've started her on stronger antibiotics, but she's extremely distressed, which is complicating treatment. Can I see her? Harold asked desperately. In a moment, Dr. Chen replied. But there's something you both need to know. Director Hendricks from CPS is here. Given Emily's relapse, she's questioning whether the community center placement is appropriate. She's suggesting that Emily might recover better in a medical foster home. Harold collapsed back into his chair. They're going to take her away after all. Wilson felt anger rising in his chest. Emily's relapse isn't because of Harold's care. Medical issues can happen anywhere. I agree, Dr. Chen said quietly. And I've told Director Hendricks as much. But she's concerned that the emotional stress of their situation may be impeding Emily's recovery. The only emotional stress that would harm Emily is being separated from her grandfather, Wilson insisted. Dr. Chen nodded. Emily's been asking for both of you. Perhaps seeing you together, supporting her as a team, might help Director Hendricks understand the importance of keeping them united. As they walked toward Emily's room, Harold whispered, I can't lose her, Wilson. I just can't. Wilson placed a reassuring hand on the older man's shoulder. We'll fight this, together. When they entered the room, Emily lay small and pale against the white hospital sheets. But despite her illness, her face brightened at the sight of them, the two people she trusted most in the world. Grandpa, Officer Wilson, she called weakly. You both came. In that moment, seeing her relief and joy, Wilson knew he would do whatever it took to keep this small, fragile family together, no matter what obstacles still lay ahead. Director Hendricks stood at Emily's bedside, clipboard in hand, observing with clinical detachment as Harold gently dabbed a cool cloth on his granddaughter's forehead. Emily's fever had finally broken after a tense night, but she remained weak and tired. Grandpa, tell me the story about the brave little rabbit again, Emily whispered, her small hand clutching Harold's weathered fingers. Harold smiled tenderly. Once upon a time, there was a brave little rabbit who lived in a meadow. Though she was the smallest rabbit in her family, she had the biggest heart. As Harold continued the familiar tale, one he'd clearly told many times before, Wilson noticed Emily mouthing some of the words along with him. It was their story, a private bond that had sustained them through countless difficult nights. Director Hendricks made notes on her clipboard, her expression unreadable. Dr. Chen entered with Dr. Michaels, both carrying files. Director Hendricks, we'd like to discuss Emily's case with you privately, Dr. Chen requested. Wilson followed the three women into the hallway, determined to advocate for Emily and Harold. We've received Emily's comprehensive test results, Dr. Chen began, opening her file. The recurrence of infection was not due to negligent care. In fact, this type of rebound is common with the particular bacteria involved. It would have happened regardless of where Emily was staying. Dr. Michaels spoke next. Moreover, my psychological assessment indicates that Emily's emotional state is directly tied to her relationship with her grandfather. Their bond is not just beneficial, it's essential to her recovery. Separating them now would constitute a significant trauma. Director Hendricks frowned. While I appreciate your professional opinions, my concern is long-term stability. Mr. Jenkins hasn't secured permanent employment or housing yet. But he's making remarkable progress, Wilson countered. He's completed the center's job. Readiness program and has 2 interviews scheduled next week. Emily is enrolled to start school in the fall. That's all well and good, but Wilson was interrupted by a commotion from Emily's room. They rushed back in to find Emily sitting upright, her eyes wide with excitement. Grandpa says we can plant sunflowers at our new home when I get better, she exclaimed to them. Officer Wilson, will you help us? I've never grown flowers before. The innocent question hung in the air. Director Hendricks looked from Emily's hopeful face to Harold's devoted one, then down at her clipboard. After a long moment, she closed her folder. Mr. Jenkins, I'd like to schedule a follow-up home visit next month. In the meantime, I'm approving an extension of your current placement while Emily recovers. Harold's eyes filled with tears of relief. Thank you. As Director Hendricks left, Dr. Chen smiled at Emily. If your next blood test looks good tomorrow, you might be able to go home the day after. With Grandpa? Emily confirmed anxiously. With Grandpa, Dr. Chen assured her. Later, as Wilson prepared to leave, Harold walked him to the door. I got the call while you were talking in the hallway, he said quietly. I've been offered the maintenance position at your brother-in-law's company. Full-time, with benefits. Wilson grinned, clasping the older man's shoulder. Harold, that's fantastic. It means we can start looking for a small apartment once I get my first paycheck. A real, home, Wilson. Harold's voice cracked with emotion. A month ago, I'd lost all hope. Now, from her bed, Emily called, Officer Wilson, I almost forgot to show you. She held up a drawing, 3 stick figures standing in front of what appeared to be a house. That's me and Grandpa and you, at forever home. Looking at the crayon drawing of the impossible family she'd created in her imagination, Wilson felt something shift in his heart. This case had changed him in ways he was only beginning to understand. It's beautiful, Emily, he said. Save a spot for those sunflowers, okay? A month passed quickly. Emily recovered fully from her infection, the swelling in her abdomen completely gone. With proper nutrition and medical care, she blossomed. Her cheeks filled out, her energy returned, and her imagination flourished in healthier ways. Though she occasionally mentioned her baby, she now understood it had been a special friend her mind created when she needed one. Harold thrived in his new position, arriving early and staying late, eager to prove himself worthy of the opportunity. His supervisor praised his work ethic and attention to detail. With each paycheck, his confidence grew along with his savings account. Wilson visited them regularly at the community center, bringing updates on affordable housing options, and sometimes just to play catch with Emily in the yard. Today, however, was different. Today was their review hearing with Child Protective Services, the meeting. That would determine whether Harold could officially regain full custody of Emily. Are you nervous, Grandpa? Emily asked as Harold straightened his only tie, a donation from the center's clothing bank. A little, Harold admitted, kneeling to her level. But Officer Wilson will be there with us. And we've worked very hard to show everyone how well we're doing together. They met Wilson outside the downtown office building. He carried a thick folder under his arm. Ready? Wilson asked, his confidence bolstering their own. Inside the conference room, they found Director Hendricks, Keisha, Williams, Dr. Michaels, and a family court representative waiting. The formality of the setting made Emily press closer to Harold's side. Good morning, Director Hendricks began. We're here to review the case of Emily Jenkins and determine appropriate permanent guardianship arrangements. Wilson placed his folder on the table. If I may, I'd like to present evidence supporting Mr. Harold Jenkins' petition for full restoration of guardianship. At Director Hendricks' nod, Wilson opened the folder and began methodically laying out their case. First, medical documentation from Dr. Chen, confirming Emily's complete recovery and excellent current health status. He placed the report on the table. Second, an evaluation from Emily's therapist, noting significant emotional progress and the vital role Mr. Jenkins plays in her sense of security. One by one, Wilson presented the evidence they'd carefully gathered: Harold's employment verification and positive performance review, the completion certificates from parenting and financial management classes at the community center, Emily's pre-enrollment assessment for school showing she was academically on track despite her lack of formal education, and finally, approval for a 2-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood near both Harold's job and Emily's future school. Most importantly, Wilson concluded, I've included statements from everyone who has worked with this family, all confirming the same conclusion. Emily belongs with her grandfather. The room fell silent as the officials reviewed the materials. Emily fidgeted in her chair, her legs swinging nervously. Emily, Director Hendricks said gently, may I ask you a question? Emily nodded solemnly. What makes you happiest about living with your grandfather? Without hesitation, Emily answered, Grandpa makes me feel safe, and he never forgets to read me a story, even when he's super tired, and… She leaned forward as if sharing a secret. He promised we can get a fish for our new apartment. A smile touched Director Hendrix's usually stern face. She exchanged glances with her colleagues before addressing Harold. Mr. Jenkins, your progress has been remarkable. While we'll maintain quarterly check-ins for the next year, I see no reason not to recommend full custody restoration. Harold's eyes filled with tears as Emily jumped from her chair with a cheer. Does that mean it's official? Grandpa is my forever home? Yes, Emily, Keisha confirmed warmly. Your grandpa is your forever home. Outside, Emily skipped ahead while Wilson and Harold followed at a slower pace. I can never thank you enough, Harold said, his voice thick with emotion. Wilson smiled, watching Emily twirl with joy in the autumn sunlight. Some things are worth fighting for. Winter gave way to spring, and with the changing seasons came new beginnings for Emily and Harold. They had settled into their small apartment, modest but clean, with Emily's drawings brightening every wall. Harold had received a promotion at work, and Emily was thriving in first grade, quickly making up for lost time with her natural intelligence and eagerness to learn. Wilson still visited regularly, now more as a friend than an official presence in their lives. On this particular Saturday, he arrived to help them plant the sunflowers Emily had been dreaming of since her hospital stay. The apartment complex had a community garden where they'd claimed a small plot. As Emily carefully placed seeds in the soil, a local news van pulled into the parking lot. Wilson immediately tensed, positioning himself protectively near Emily. A reporter and cameraman approached, though they kept a respectful distance. Officer Wilson, I'm Lisa Chen from Channel 7 News. We're doing a follow-up story on Emily Jenkins, the miracle baby case. Before Wilson could intervene, the reporter continued, We've discovered something remarkable in our investigation that we'd like to verify. Harold stepped forward. My granddaughter is not a story. She's a child who deserves privacy. I understand, Mr. Jenkins, the reporter said, lowering her microphone. But this isn't about sensationalizing what happened. It's about something else entirely. Wilson frowned. What are you talking about? Our investigation into similar cases led us to interview specialists in pediatric psychology. One doctor revealed that what Emily experienced, a psychological pregnancy with physical manifestations, has been documented in children who've experienced profound isolation and loss. It's the mind's way of creating connection when none exists. Emily looked up from her planting, soil smudging her cheek. You mean other kids made up babies too? The simple question, so innocent yet so profound, silenced everyone. Yes, Emily, the reporter answered gently. Other children have created similar companions to help them through difficult times. Your story is helping doctors understand how to better help those children. Emily considered this, a thoughtful expression on her young Dorisi, so my pretend baby helped other kids too? In that moment, what had once seemed like a troubling fantasy was suddenly transformed into something powerful, a testament to the resilience of a child's spirit in the face of overwhelming circumstances. The revelation changed everything about how they viewed Emily's experience. What had been seen as concerning was now recognized as her mind's remarkable attempt to survive and find connection in a world that had left her with so little. After the reporter left, Emily grew quiet, contemplating this new understanding of her experience. That evening, as Harold tucked her into bed in their cozy apartment, she asked a question that caught him by surprise. Grandpa, do you think the hospital has other kids who need special friends like my baby was to me? Harold sat on the edge of her bed, stroking her hair gently. I imagine they might. Sweetheart, why do you ask? Emily reached under her pillow and pulled out her most treasured possession, the teddy bear Officer Wilson had given her during her hospital stay. She hugged it tightly, then held it out with determined eyes. I think I should give Mr. Snuggles to a kid who needs him more than me now, she declared, because I have you and Officer Wilson and my friends at school. I'm not lonely anymore. Harold's heart swelled with pride at his granddaughter's compassion. That's a very generous thought, Emily. Are you sure? Emily nodded solemnly. The bear helped me when I was scared. Now he can help someone else. The next day, Wilson drove them to the children's ward at Mercy General. Dr. Chen greeted them warmly, touched by Emily's mission. As they walked through the corridor, Emily clutched her teddy bear, scanning each room with serious consideration. Finally, she stopped outside a room where a small boy sat alone, staring out the window. According to Dr. Chen, he had been recently placed in foster care after losing his parents. Without hesitation, Emily walked into his room. Hi, I'm Emily. This is Mr. Snuggles. He's really good at keeping away bad dreams and making you feel not so alone. Would you like to be his new friend? The transformation in both children was immediate, the boy's face lighting up as he accepted the gift, and Emily standing taller, no longer defined by what she had lost, but by what she could give. In that simple act of kindness, Emily completed her journey from a child in desperate need to one with enough strength to help others. Wilson watched from the doorway, witnessing the full circle of healing that had begun that day in the supermarket aisle. 1 year to the day since Officer Wilson first encountered Emily in the supermarket. He pulled up to her elementary school for a special occasion. The spring sunshine warmed the playground where a small ceremony was taking place. Emily stood proudly at a podium adjusted for her height, wearing a pretty blue dress Harold had saved 3 paychecks to buy. Behind her, a newly installed buddy bench gleamed with fresh paint, a place where children feeling lonely could sit to signal they needed a friend. I used to be really alone, Emily spoke into the microphone, her voice clear and confident. I was so lonely that I made up a friend inside me. But then Officer Wilson and my grandpa showed me what real family feels like. Harold watched from the front row, dressed in his work uniform. He'd taken just 2 hours off for the ceremony before heading to his shift. Beside him sat Dr. Chen, Dr. Michaels, and even Director Hendricks, all there to witness the unveiling of the bench that Emily had proposed as a school project. Sometimes kids feel invisible, Emily continued. This bench is so nobody has to feel that way. You just sit here, and it means you need a friend, and I promise, someone will come. As the principal handed Emily the ceremonial scissors to cut the ribbon, Wilson felt a lump form in his throat. The small, frightened child clutching diapers in a supermarket aisle had transformed into this poised, compassionate young girl who now used her experience to help others. After the ceremony, Emily ran to Wilson and Harold, throwing her arms around them both. Did I do good? She asked. You did amazing, Wilson assured her. As they walked toward the parking lot, Emily between them holding both their hands, she looked up at Wilson. Remember when you asked me in the hospital if I needed anything? Wilson nodded, recalling that difficult night. I don't need a pretend baby anymore, Emily said thoughtfully, because now I know what I was really looking for. What's that, sweetheart? Harold asked. Emily squeezed their hands, her smile radiant in the spring sunshine. Someone to hear me, and you both did. Sometimes, Wilson reflected as they walked together, what looks like an impossible situation is simply a cry for help that needs to be heard with an open heart. And in listening to that cry, we might just find our own healing too.